roll up my weed and think about my.
Good afternoon, everybody. Glenn McDonald, another Mainline Strength and Conditioning podcast. Today, my guest is Will Gibbs. Will was a security officer at MCC Chicago. Just recently retired about a year ago, right?
Yes, about a year ago.
All right. So, Will, let's hear it, man. Let's hear about how you grew up, where you grew up, what got you involved in the good old BOP.
Well, let's see. I'm the only child, and I grew up in Inglewood, Chicago, which at that time in the early '70s, um, to me, I had a great childhood. Okay, I knew people on the block, the adults, the parents, the kids. I mean, we all had our little squabbles and stuff. That's what kids do. But we got along, and I look back on it as being a great time. Uh, Man, kids played together. You
Yeah.
know, uh, we played, football. We played softball. We did things that kids do. You know, Nowadays kids don't do that. But anyway, I grew up there. Uh, I can't say I was a problem child in high school because I wasn't. But I'll put it this way: I hung out a lot.
Okay.
Okay, and yeah, I did go to class, and then some days I didn't go to class. But
What were you up to
I
when
got
you
a.
were in class?
I'm
What were
sorry.
what were you up to when you weren't in class?
Uh, let's
Trouble,
see.
huh?
How can I? No, no, no. Actually, uh, they had this. We had this room called the book room where I guess kids would go and pick up their books for the school year. And right across from that was the music room, the music room, and then the auditorium was connected to it. So it was a little area where not a lot of people hung out because of the music teacher, but he was pretty much laid back. He was one of those type of teachers that he cared about his students and he talked to them, but really wasn't as concerned of of them, you know, uh, I guess doing what they're supposed to be doing. Like, how are you in here every period or every other period? But all in all, he gave us some good advice, and pretty much that's when I got my act together and started hanging out with some people who were about going to class. And fortunately, they played music,
Mhm.
and at that time, I was kind of interested in it, but I wasn't too sure if would be good at playing an instrument. So I picked up percussion, played the bongos a little bit, started playing the drums. We got a band together, and that's when going to school and going to class started to mean more
Yeah.
because I get to hang out with those people
You had a
that were
purpose.
interested. Yeah, and they had the same um,
Same interest.
ideas that I.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
So we go to class and stuff, and I didn't graduate on time like I should have, but being with those guys, it didn't matter because I don't know, it just made being a teenager easier.
Mhm.
And we stayed, connected for a while until I went to the military. But after high school, uh, I started working for a little while. I didn't go straight to college. Um, I wasn't, I didn't consider myself a college type to go to college.
Right.
So working part time here and there. I worked at a hospital for a couple of years. My mother worked there. She worked in housekeeping.
What'd you do?
So actually, it was a branch off of the nursing department, but I went to different floors picking up pharmacy slips.
Mhm.
I had to don on the plastic gloves and the as you say, PPE gear, to pick up specimens and stuff like that and take them to the lab. So in doing that, being a uh, young person, being around a lot of older adults, I kind of learned my way and listened to them and listened to their stories about growing up and what they did. So what got me kind of interested in the military was a couple of the engineers sitting around talking about their experience. And of
Mhm.
course, they were in the Navy. So, I asked questions and I started dreaming about being overseas. I s-
Mhm.
just thinking about doing stuff other than being on the block, you know, going to
Yeah.
work, coming home, you know. I mean, a vacation is a vacation, but it only lasts so long, a week or two. So now, don't take this the wrong way, Captain. Uh,
Call me
I
Glenn. You
did go to,
don't call me
okay,
Kevin.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Glenn, it's kind of hard to call you Glenn, but
I
anyway, uh, I went to a Marine recruiter,
know.
and as I entered the door, the yelling and the screaming and the push-ups and the pull-ups in the back and all that stuff, uh, I picked up a pamphlet. I listened for a few minutes, and then I walked out. And I walked right down the street, right into the Navy recruiter, see if there was something different.
What was he doing? Sitting back eating a sandwich.
Actually, he was getting ready to close up shop for the day.
Oh, he's going home early, huh?
Yeah, he was a chief bosun mate, I believe. Um, some of those memories are kind of hard to forget, but he was, about to, I guess, take off his shirt and stuff, and
What
he
year?
asked me how old it was.
What year?
I'm sorry.
What year was this?
Oh, Jesus. This was, I would say, 88,
Okay.
back in 88. So I go in, and he's real nonchalant. He's not forcing nothing down my throat. He's just talking to me like we're talking now.
Mhm.
And he kind of just, didn't force anything on me. Just say, hey, if you want to make a decision on something bigger than you, um, experience, meet people, travel, all the regular stuff. Uh, here's my card, here's my pamphlet, and I pretty much walked out the door. So it was a decision that I had to make,
It was like no
and just so
pressure.
happened, no, it wasn't no pressure. It wasn't no pressure to 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 join the Navy or to uh, to join a specific job or to do a specific thing. He didn't ask me about my interests or nothing like that. He just pretty much just laid it out on the table as if this is what you want, you know. So uh, of course there's no internet or nothing like that. But my cousin who lives in Chattanooga, he was in the Navy. And it just so happens prior uh, I think around in January of '88, something like that, it was still cold out. My cousin was in the Navy, okay? And he was in Chicago, I guess, up in Great Lakes, and he came to visit. I guess his school was up there. I'm not quite sure. But he came to the house to visit, and we talked. And because just that conversation, it kind of clicked a little bit, but it wasn't no real big deal, you know? And then September of '88, I was in, you know, long process, but pretty much I was told by those engineers because I had to resign from my job, and they told me like follow the process, and that's what I did.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget first day of boot camp, driven all the way around, all the way to the airport just to go to Great Lakes in the middle of the damn night, and they put me in the top bunk. I fell into a deep sleep, and I woke up to the clicking of light switches and garbage cans being rolled down the hallway there to wake everybody up. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. And going to chow hall in civilian clothes and having all the basic training guys just, staring at you. But I followed the process. And growing up with two parents that went to work every day showed me that you got to get up and go to work. You got to get up and have a purpose of doing something. You just can't lay around the house and do nothing.
That's good. That's good. You had
You
that.
know, so yeah. I kind of wish that I noticed that one thing when I came home from boot camp, it seemed like the kids that I grew up with and, were much older now, they were all gone. Everybody kind of either moved away or whatever. But I noticed that everybody moved on. And later on in life, being in the Navy and going through friends passing away and stuff like that, I grew up knowing that, hey, life is hard. You got to make the most of it and be the best at it as you can. So
now, when you were in boot camp, I mean, since you're from Chicago, and Great Lakes is what, probably 35 minutes away, I think, from where you are, probably somewhere around there.
yeah,
That
yep,
that play with your head a little bit because you're like, oh, this, I mean, you're young.
yeah,
You're young.
yeah.
You're probably like, man, why the hell am I doing this? And then
So
yeah, I'm right now,
since
half hour away.
exactly since you mentioned that, so being around a bunch of guys from different places, they have their own little sayings and stuff like that, right? So we're marching at night, and up in Great Lakes you can see the stars and stuff, and I don't know, it's just I kept myself in boot camp, I guess. I knew that Chicago wasn't that far away, okay, and I don't know, it's just I guess I didn't think about it. I just kept my mind into what was going on.
Right.
And I spoke to my parents pretty much on they called it then Ricky Sundays. So, you go to church, or you could stay in your bunk, or, enjoy the whatever little activities that were going on just that day to kind of, unwind a little bit and break the monotony. So I would call my parents and
Yeah, we
talk
had
to
that.
them.
We had that in the Marine Corps boot camp too, where Sundays. Well, I mean, it wasn't like that, but you could either go to church or you could stay at the barracks. We didn't get phone calls. You stay at the barracks and you could work. You'd spit shine your boots. You could
Yeah.
press
Yeah.
work on knowledge, things like that. And you couldn't stay in the rack. That's for damn sure. Nothing like that. You're working, and then if you stayed at the barracks, guess what? You're subject to a little, possibly some little punishment if if you're there.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget what they called it. Because they used to make us push the racks back,
Mhm.
put our utility jacket on and our pea coat, and pretty much try to push the floor as much as possible.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, to get a chance to talk to everybody from all over,
Mhm.
to just I mean, I got along with everybody. I there was a few scuffles in boot camp, when the commander wasn't around and stuff like that, and then the leaders try to take over. But I pretty much just like, hey, I need to stay here and do what I need to do. And then I guess you can say like halfway through boot camp, I found myself pretty much helping others doing certain things. Like I was good at doing the corners on the bed, and the measuring of the length from the pillow to here to there. And some other guys were good at shining the shoes, the boots. Okay, so we all kind of shared our talent and tried to show others to make everybody else, to step up a little bit better. So we tried to work together as much as possible.
What MOS did you decide on? Because you guys did you choose back then, or how?
Well,
What you
after we took the ASVAB, they said, okay, well, you qualify for XYG, XYZ jobs. Okay, that was open at the time. So I took a boiler technician, which is called BT, but boiler tech.
Mhm.
Uh, After boot camp, I went to basic engineering school, which was a few weeks.
Which was where?
And it was in Great Lakes.
Oh
They
wow!
said it's
Went across the
which
street.
was boot. Yep, right across the street. Boot camp was on one side, and all the schools were on the opposite side.
Okay.
So we went over there. I did the basic engineering. I started my BT school. As they say, I rocked out of that. I didn't make it. So they sent me to the fleet. But when they sent me to the fleet, they sent me to Norfolk, Virginia, and they gave me the same MOS, or basically the same trade, the job.
Okay.
So, I didn't question why. They had my records. And they said, hey, Gibbs, you're going to B division. Okay. So I went to B division. Okay, in the Navy, I don't know if they do it in the Marine Corps, but I had to mess crank for like 90 days, 3 months. So I had to work in the kitchen for 3 months on the ship. I did that.
Yeah.
And I went from there, I went down to B division, which is the boiler techs. And I went down there, and because I was 21 at the time, so I was older than a lot of the other guys. So I kind of took things as it came. I didn't really, you know, bitch
Why,
about a lot of stuff.
why'd you what was hard about the BT course? What happened?
I guess it was a lot of the engineering terms,
Okay. Yeah.
and because it was mostly, I guess you can say, instruction theory and theory, the books. I had to, I felt like I had to put my hands on it to really learn it better.
Yeah, I can understand.
Once I got to B division, the terms came up, and I was actually putting my hands on this equipment, and everything started to click.
So what
So,
you didn't have that? You didn't hold that MOS. You were just like well, you just a seaman
well,
apprentice, like with
yeah,
no
well, actually, because I went to engineering, the engineering school, the basic, I was considered a fireman.
oh, okay.
So they wanted to put me either in, I forget, I think it was Hull Tech or something like that. Um, but they put me in B division instead. One, because they were short, and two, they had an open billet for it. They had
Needs
an
of,
open spot for it.
it's called needs of the Navy or
Yeah, exactly.
whatever's
The
open.
neither. So they stuck me down there, and I went from E2 to E3, first time up, because I was actually able to take what little theory I got and put my hands on it, and it worked better for me. So uh, during the time of talking to other petty officers at the time and the leadership and stuff like that, I found that I had to learn that way. It was better for me. So as much as I could, tried to put the books and the actual hands-on together as much as possible. And I was able to make my E4 while I was in there. Um, Navy life was great. I mean, I did my time, uh,
What
met some good people. I'm sorry.
boat were you on?
I was on the USS Ferris, which was a fast frigate. Small, very small ship, steam driven, two boilers, two 1,200-pound boilers. Um, I went from messenger, which was take readings on different pieces of equipment, to lower levelman, which is like, I think 2 or 3 steps up.
Did
Um,
you ever were you ever since you were like hands-on training, did they ever give you that rate as a BT or were you just
yes, yes, they gave me that rate when I made E4, which was one chevron with the crow on top.
Yeah. Yep.
They had a big ceremony for us and everything, and our first, I guess, uniform was given to us
Yeah.
with our name on it. No. The working utility blues.
Okay.
So at that time, we were still wearing the dungarees, the denim bell bottoms. We were still wearing those.
Okay.
So yeah, they gave us a big speech about being young leaders and stuff like that, and training and all this. And I was lucky enough to have a couple of chiefs that went up through the ranks the same way that I did, meaning they had to put the two together to make it work for them. And they said, yeah, just, keep doing what you're doing. Always be eager to learn, be patient with yourself to not pick it up right away, because everybody doesn't learn the same way. But when you do get it, make sure that you teach others. And that's what I started to do while I was still active. I went from that ship to a what do you call that? A subtender. And the subtender that I was on was called the USS Yellowstone. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
No.
Okay. Well, the Yellowstone was a subtender. Basically, you had ship's crew and you had the crew that works on submarines. And they repaired submarines out at sea. When they were in port, they did a lot of the work. Ship's crew, which I was a part of, was a border tech, and I worked on board the ship. I just did my regular duties as if I was on my first ship. Also, by the way, I helped decommission that ship. That was, to me, that was kind of touchy. It's like leaving home forever. It's kind of hard to explain. I was on that ship for so many years, to have to give it up and not being able to, leave that ship and come home. We had to decommission it and give it away to somebody else.
I mean, you're doing the maintenance on it. You're fixing what all the squeaks are and everything else, and you know how to fix it. So yeah, of course, you grow.
Yeah, I went
on that ship.
Yeah, I did. I went through. Oh my God! Now that you mention it, I remember carrying, I guess, 80 pounds, 100-pound valves up decks that have to be uh, taken off the ship for repair or scrap metal, and we would get new ones in, and we'd have to put those valves in. And Jesus, oil samples, things that happen. How can I describe it? We had an emergency boiler shutdown. I've been through two. On board my first ship, when you're watching as a boiler tech, one of our jobs is to watch fires burn, okay, inside this boiler. And I knew what to do, okay, because we did a lot of walkthroughs. You do this, you do this, you do this. If this happens, if fires go out, you do this, you do this, you do this. Well, when fires went out and I was on duty, I didn't have to think about nothing. We went through it so many times, so many repetitions, muscle memory.
Yep.
I did it, and at the time the lower level man was watching me do all this stuff, he just stared at me like, I don't believe you just did that that fast.
Yeah,
and
without thinking about it.
Yeah, like, and I didn't think about it. So from that time, he started training me for his spot. Okay, because he knew that once I knew it, he knew I could handle it. So, yep. Like I said, I had a ball. A lot of different ports, dealing with people's coming on board drunk. Have to deal with that. That was funny. But all in all, it was good fun.
But so how many years did do in the Navy then?
4.
4 years.
And I did 4 years in the Navy total. A few years on the first ship. The Yellowstone, I did about 6 months, and then I left the Navy.
Okay.
I went back to Great Lakes for to be processed out.
And then what?
So I went to after going to Great Lakes, I processed out, came back home. Didn't do too much of anything. I tried to. I called around the different boiler places to try to get in, or how to get in. And a lot of the places said we're not hiring, or I just got an apprentice to come in, and I was looking for work. I couldn't really find what I was used to doing.
What was this, 90,
So
92 time frame?
yeah, 88 to 90. Yeah, I got out 88 to 92. Yes, I got out in 92, and I started looking for work, and I stumbled across the state halfway house. Okay, somebody that I knew somebody who worked there. I'm like, hey, if you're looking for, he said, but they're hiring part time right now. I was like, okay, I'll take it.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I went, I was still in the reserves then. I did part time. Basically, they called me on a Friday and Saturday when everybody's calling off because they want to enjoy their weekend to come in and work. I came to work on Friday. I worked 2 shifts. Saturday, I worked 2 shifts. State inmates a lot different than federal. Halfway house is a totally different scenario altogether. I did that for a little while, and then I stumbled across that federal had a halfway house at the YMCA. So
where are you? Downtown Chicago, or where were you?
So the state halfway house is on the west side of Chicago.
Okay.
And the federal was on Ashland and it was in pretty much the South Loop, I would say. But it was a Salvation Army, so it didn't look like a prison type setup or anything. It just looked like a regular building. So from working those 2 jobs, that's how I learned about the Bureau, working at the federal halfway house. And this one lady who was teaching me control and different things was telling me that I would probably be a good fit for it.
Now, was there a lot of, as far as like working in there, was there like a lot of interaction between you and the people that were in halfway house? And then as far as, did you have to like correct a lot of them, or how'd that go?
So I guess I had to find my way. And what I mean by that is learning from the older staff on how to talk to these guys. And I would say maybe after a good 6 months of part-time, and then I started working full-time a little bit after that, I learned how they worked. Certain things that they do, I would pick up on. Certain inmates who were leaving the halfway house, going out into the world. They were through with their halfway house time. They started telling me stuff, about how inmates are. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But then again, I took what I learned from those who were leaving and put it over here in this box. And when I started to see it, when I started to see inmates do certain things, I referred back to what those inmates who were leaving me were telling. And I'm like, wow. And it started to click. So federal halfway house is totally different.
Now
They were able to.
real quick about the state one. So did you ever, since you were from that area, did you ever run into anybody that you knew? I bet.
Yes. So a lot of those guys, I would say from the state, I guess from me being like right out of the Navy and not really knowing too many people, because I was pretty much to myself. They didn't know me, But then when they started talking about where they lived at and certain things, I started picturing, like, I know that spot. I know what they're talking about. I know all this. That the federal halfway house was the same way. Okay. But these inmates were more, how can I say, seditious inmates, meaning that they could have TVs in their room. State had a TV room where they gathered.
Right.
The federal inmates, they could have at the halfway house, they had their own single room, their own TV. They could have their vitamin supplements from the street. Uh, they paid their restitution. They carried wads of cash with them, but they had to make sure that they, do certain things. So that was the difference, and some other things too. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that there was a federal halfway house. I thought it was just state. I didn't really know about federal jail.
I mean, people still don't. I mean, people are like, "What's Federal Bureau of Prisons? What do you mean? What's that?" It's like, well, it's
Exactly.
federal government. It's a prison, and federal law enforcement, whoever gets locked up by them, they go to federal prison. Oh, you mean the state? No. You
No.
mean county? No. I mean the federal government. The what? The state? No. It's like, come on, man. It's like, yeah, the federal government, the US government. Yeah, that's who.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know that that side of it because I'd been in the state halfway house for about 6 years, five and a half, 6 years. And again, I didn't know how far the bureau went.
Right.
So oh man, when I started doing that, it's a whole different outlook. Now, granted, I never worked at a prison setting.
Yep.
I never worked at a jail setting, just a halfway house. I like I said, I kind of went the bureau way. I tried to stay. I tried to work at Joliet Correctional. I tried to work for Cook County, but it didn't work out.
How was the money like working in a halfway house? What were you getting hourly?
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a salary rate, but I want to say the most I've made at the state was about 23,000
Oh,
a year.
man.
But I was doing overtime, so I didn't really,
Yeah, you didn't. Yeah, right.
So I was used to working.
Right.
I was used to working. I'll put you this way. Day shift is one way because you have all the administrative there and things run a certain way. And then you have the evening shift. As they're leaving, people are kind of start to ease back a little bit. And I won't even talk about morning watch because morning watch is just that.
They're even there.
Exactly. So getting that training from the state and then part-time at the federal halfway house, all three different shifts, I said, maybe I can do, the Bureau of Prisons, So
You know anybody?
I did that.
You know
No,
anybody? No?
I didn't know anybody. I filled out the application and just one step at a time. It was back and forth type deal at that time. I'll never forget. It was a brochure. I filled it out, sent it in. They sent me some stuff back. Filled it out, send it in. So
Old
that
school.
went on. Yeah,
Handwritten?
old school. Yes,
Handwritten?
sir.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
see? Yeah, you're an OG like me. Everything's handwritten. Write everything out.
Right. I went home and sit there and go, okay, how should I write this? Your experience about this and this, that, and the other. So I did that, and the lady called me from Greenville, and we went back and forth, documents that I needed, certain things and stuff like that. And I'll never forget, she called me on the phone from HR and she said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "No." She said, "We're going to hire you." And I was like,
Okay.
kind of speechless. And I was like, wow, but I didn't think about the prison thing. I really didn't. I just thought about what I did to make it that far.
Well, it's funny you say that now. It's like I remember like before we were leaving, because I mean you probably had the same feeling I did because you served your country, you did your time in the military, you get out, you're like, man, this is like a real struggle out here to find a real job to where you're be able to fend for
Yes,
yourself or your family, and then you get this big job with the federal government, and you're like, you kind of like get that sense of pride. You're like, oh, I'm going to be working for the
exactly.
government. Nowadays, it's like people are just like, no big deal. It's just another. It's like, I'm going to Burger King today. It's like, no, you should probably take that to heart a little bit. That you're working for the government. You're working for the man, whatever you want to call it. It's to me, it
Exactly.
was even now. It's even now it'd be a big deal to me to be like hired on for more employment with the government.
Of course. By the way, when I was working for the halfway house, we didn't have a uniform. Okay, just regular civilian clothes. So what I did was when I went, of course, I was going to Joliet to do hearings. So
Okay.
people who got tickets, I would have to go. Guys would get sent back, and I'd have to go down there and write up some paperwork on the hearing, like what did you do? Your boss did this. I would investigate it, and they had a store for staff. So I bought
Okay.
a couple of polos with the insignia on it, and I
Right.
kind of pretty much created my own uniform.
Yeah, that's good.
And I went back to I got my boots shined. I wore the khaki pants and the polo shirt, and I pretty much created my own uniform that I wore proudly because
Yeah.
that's what I was doing.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, you're kind of used to that too from the military. So
Right. So and I knew what I was wearing every day. I didn't have to think about what you're wearing. I I got six polos in here. Pick a color. I threw on my a uniform belt. My boots were shined clean, and I came to work every day.
Mhm.
Uh, but when I got hired onto the bureau, it was a whole different feeling. It was almost as being sworn in again.
Mhm.
Okay, in boot camp, I got sworn in boot camp when we had to do it again when I was in Greenville.
Okay.
That pride, all that stuff started coming back.
Yeah.
You know,
Great.
and the chest stuck out. I've accomplished
Mhm.
something that my parents always told me. I want you to be better than me. I want
True.
you to do better than I did. And I felt that I accomplished that.
And you
So I
did.
said, sky's the limit. Especially, from where I came from. I don't think. Let's see. My next door neighbor was a paramedic with Chicago Fire Department. Um, some of the guys I knew on the block growing up, I didn't know what happened to them until later on. Okay, and but I knew him for a while because I was working for the bureau at the time. He was working for the fire department.
Okay.
But anyway, so I get to the bureau, and Greenville was a shock. Um, I had some good teachers that showed me the ropes, and what I mean by that is I had season eights. At that time, I was
You,
told eights ran it, and you don't go to a lieutenant, you go to that eight.
what year? What
And
year was
and
this? So this was
uh,
what
2000.
98 and 2000. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, this was 2000. I started in 2000. What month? Jesus Christ. February. Duh. February. And the guy, the guy who was teaching me, it was a couple of them, but I kind of every time I asked him something, it was no problem. I didn't get on their nerves. I don't know. I didn't know if I was asking silly questions or what, but they answered everything.
And they
And
knew.
from what, yeah, and they knew the tricks
Oh,
that inmates play. So just so happened that in Greenville they had what was it called? Four House, I guess. 4B was full of guys from Chicago and Indiana. Now they were all spread it out, but the majority was there in Four House. So I guess word got around the compound that they had a new CO from Chicago.
Mhm.
And they got my name, of course. And I worked at a house one day, and I think that one day I didn't write any shots. But over the course of a couple of months, every time I worked at a house, I would get hooch. I would get this. I would find that. The drop notes. I would ask my the season 8. Hey man, what do I do with this? And it was like you got to act on it. So I started to pretty much go back to how things how I saw things operate when I was growing up. The older guys, the way they were doing things on the block. The older guys who were into that type of, the gang banging stuff or the selling drugs or whatever. Whatever they were doing, I started. It was pretty much like a game, cat and mouse thing, and it just got. I guess it got better, not easier, because there still was a chance of the danger still being there, and being nervous and scared. I went to his name was Walker. He was an 8, and I talked to him, and he was like, "If you're not a little bit nervous when you walk in these doors, you're not going to be on your A game.
Or you're lying. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, you're going to be lying to yourself." So, and I kept my head on the swivel, and pretty much I started to see things. It started to just open up. You know how inmates do.
What was that?
The library.
That a medium back then? Probably.
Greenville FCI, I think so. I believe so. They had a female camp, and that was crazy because I had to run the camp by myself.
Yep.
And dealing with females is a whole different.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know.
So not to stray off the subject, but right now I'm watching Orange is the New Black on Netflix, and it's like I'm reliving Greenville all over again. Um, but anyway, so running the camp by myself, uh, the Officer Walker that I was with got pulled to work at the FCI because they didn't have an activities lieutenant, and he had to go over there, and I had to run the whole camp. And it was like, you can handle it. I didn't feel that I could, but then I just started rolling with the training, and I had to write shots, I had to discipline some ladies and stuff like that, and sometimes I got beside myself. Basically, you know, I had to cuss a couple of people out, you know, and no, it didn't feel good. I was nervous doing it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was nervous doing it because I didn't know what the outcome was gonna be. You
And
know,
everybody. It's funny. A lot of people they ask, "Did you ever work with women?" Yeah, and you kind of like everyone has that same look. Yeah, I did, and it's like, are they bad? Yeah, they're worse than the guys in the
yes,
USP.
they are.
Worse than the guys in the
Oh
USP.
yeah, oh yeah. I was watching the show Orange is the New Black and Count Time and this, that, and the other, and I'm thinking about, like, yeah, Count Time was a pain in the ass because standing count, they all stood up, and every
Around
fe-
talking. Yeah.
yeah, every female had like a different scent on them, and they wanted to poke their chest out, and I'm like, I just want to count.
Yep. Not wearing their what their supposed undergarments and yeah.
Exactly. Oh, I've told a few, stop, turn around, go back to yourself, change all that.
Mhm.
Uh, Greenville taught me a lot, but when I got to Chicago, being inside all the time, never having to go outside for anything.
How long
Uh,
were you in Greenville? How long did you stay there?
I was in Greenville until Thanksgiving of that year, from being from hired in February till almost Christmas.
Oh, so
I, I
for just about a year.
yeah, just about a year. I went to I don't know how many months, and then I went to Glencoe, came back,
Mhm.
um, found out that from one of the union guys in Greenville that there was opening in Chicago. You know that they were hurting for officers. So after Glencoe, and I got approved from the captain who okayed it. I went on and started doing my paperwork. Uh, and just fortunately, I was in a housing unit, and each housing unit has its own boiler room. Okay, so I was working. What do they call it? The compound officer.
Mhm.
So I was a compound officer, and I saw a bunch of the staff going over there, and I kind of went down there with them. And one of the guys I started naming off stuff in the boiler room, and the guy was like, "Hey, you want to work in facilities?" I said I hadn't thought about it, but of course that's what I really wanted to do. But I got a liking to work in custody,
Mhm.
and I stayed in custody. Um, Transferred to Chicago before the end of that year. Oh, let me back up a little bit. 9/11, when that happened, uh, that whole week, everything was so different on
Oh
the
yeah,
compound.
it was. Yep. Yep.
Uh, it, Everybody who was a suspect in that, I guess, genre of being picked up, or they were watching or whatever, things changed. Everything changed. The movement changed. Rec time changed. Everything changed. Shoe changed. I think I saw a shoe one time. I was too inexperienced to work shoe. So I went over there for a hot second, meaning that I went over there to deliver something. And the guy said, I was like, so this is shoe. And I was curious about it. And he said, you probably won't work shoe for at least a couple more years,
Right.
you know. And that was that for that. But 9/11 changed a lot. I was drilling at Great Lakes, and I tried to get into the security force that they had there. They only had one person that worked in corrections. They were looking at me because I worked in corrections. Everybody else was a street cop in that division. But when I came to drill that weekend, everybody was gone.
For real.
Everybody had left. Yeah,
Where'd you go?
everybody left to go overseas.
Oh, really? Wow.
So yeah, so I was like, wow, okay. But I put things in perspective as it happened for a reason. Maybe it wasn't my time to do that,
Hmm.
you know. And I kept, coming to drill. I got bored with it because I'm in corrections now. I wanted to, to get that. So I did my time in there, and I got out. I didn't go back to reserves. Um, Working in Greenville, a lot of things happened in 9 months. It opened my eyes to a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
Okay, I witnessed a hanging. An inmate hung himself in the gym.
This is in Greenville,
With
right?
This is in Greenville, and they showed. I'll never forget. We were counting, and they kept saying bad count, and I'm like, I kept saying it can't be my unit. I'm looking at the bodies. I'm seeing all this, and the other officer, the season 8, said, "Gibbs, it's not you." So after we counted, we cleared, but we couldn't do anything. It's nighttime anyway. All the other officers went over to the other unit to just back this count, and they started doing the 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 picture book,
That book. Yep.
the post, yeah, the bed book, and in control. I was told that they were looking around in different places to try to find out what was going on, checking doors, checking the library, doing all this other stuff. And when they went to the gym, they observed the inmate. First attempt, he didn't do it. Second attempt, he did it.
Oh, no kidding. Jesus, man. Huh.
So that woke up a lot. Now, I don't know what it entailed, but I was supposed to get off at 0800. I didn't leave until about 10.
Right.
Everybody had to do a statement,
Hmm.
regardless if it was you or not.
Yep. Yep.
Seeing an inmate get jumped on in the middle of movement. I was working in the visiting room. I opened the back door to get some fresh air because they come in that way, and that's where they're stripped. So I opened the door to get a little air. It was a 10-minute move, and I saw the fight. Lickety split. It happened just that quick. Everybody was walking normally because you don't run. But this fight happened as two people walking past each other. Fight happened. That was it.
Yep. Yep.
And again, just something that I've never seen before. The hanging, the fight, finding Shanks really made me nervous.
It's funny. It's funny you say that because it's like, what'd you do? 20 years?
Yes.
I did 28. I know you only did those 2 spots. I did 9 facilities, and it's funny how like, and everyone, everyone's a tough guy, and I can handle this, and you know what, man, when it comes down to it, that shit messes with you. I mean, just I think back of some things, I'm just like, man, I don't know how I did it, you know? I don't know how I did it. 28 years of that, and just seeing some of the things, doing some of the things you had to do, and then like really not even processing it, and just okay, hey, okay, he hung himself. All right, move on.
Exactly.
And it just affects you later on in life. You're just like, man, wow, like that was crazy. A lot of
Exactly. I don't.
people don't understand how it is to be inside of a facility, and you have to process that and deal with that stuff. You know.
I from what I saw and what I've experienced, growing up and seeing, stuff happen on the street, or hearing about it, and then the jail setting, and yeah, I think about it, but then it's like, okay, the next day I'm going back to work,
Yeah.
and okay, so those inmates who are uh, getting high some kind of way,
Mhm.
you don't know where their mindset is, what's about to happen. He might flip out, or he might overdose, and you think he's sleeping in his cell, and he's not. He's dead. He's overdosed. Um, just a lot of stuff that I think back now since you mentioned it. It happened. Now we move on.
Yeah.
You know, this is what we're not going to do next time. This is what we're going to do next time. But you try not to get to that point for it to happen. So that's why um, when I was working in Chicago, uh, I kept moving around a lot. I just kept walking. And when inmates say, "Why don't you go sit down somewhere?" I said, "Why don't you go read your case? Why don't you stay off the rails and read your case? Learn something about what's going on with you and your sentence." And they would just look at me. Am I lying? No. But I think because I did that, kept me more aware of every inmate and what's going on with them. You know, uh, Before you got there, some other of the season eights and some of the old timers would tell me, when you get to know your inmates, when they come up to you and something is wrong, you can tell it right off the bat.
Yep.
And then that's when your so-called spidey senses go off, and you start doing a little bit extra. But then if you be, how can I would tell staff that I'm training, be nosy. Open that cell. Hey man, you okay? Keep moving. And I would do that. Just and it became a habit. But as long as I'm staying moving, the inmates are kind of scared to get into stuff.
Yeah. They don't know where you are. Yeah.
Right. And then when I was sitting at the desk or on morning watch and I was sitting back in the dark, I would see the inmates come out and look for me. Like, where is he? You see him? I go, really? Wow, it must be working.
And 21 and 23.
Yeah. And that was my real test. I'll never forget. Um, First day coming to Chicago, they sent me to one of those open dorms, and you weren't there, but Officer Summers was working there. And season 8, he wore shirt and tie, squared away, shoes shine all the time. So of course, I clung to that. Okay, he told me if a CO looks shitty,
you're gonna be shitty. Yeah.
exactly. If you don't care about your uniform, the clothes that you got on, I mean, come on. But anyway, I come up there, he's squared away. I have my shirt and tie on, my shoes shine too. And he said, "Hey, I need you to go up to this section and get this inmate." Okay. I go up there now. Granted, from Greenville to Chicago is a whole different scene.
I was gonna ask you like how when you showed up in Chicago, I know like when I showed up, I was like, oh, what the hell is this, man? I never
Exactly.
knew it was gonna be like something like this. How
So
was that?
uh more nervous because
Yeah.
the inmates weren't going anywhere. They weren't going off the unit like in Greenville. 10-minute move, inmates are moving.
Yeah.
You know, they're coming and going.
Yeah, going to the education. Yeah, right, right.
So I go up there, and of course, all the inmates are looking at me. My heart is beating, boom, my adrenaline is flowing. And not thinking, I swear to you, not thinking, hey, something could happen right then. I could get jumped. This could happen. That could happen. This could happen.
And one thing about Chicago too, it's like, I mean, you're face to face. I mean, there's not that
Oh,
much.
yeah.
No, I mean, like when I visited MCC New York, Miami, a few other spots, it was like, all right, there's a buffer between me and the inmates. There, man, it's like you're just like right up in front. Like they come down the stairs, there's like you're 6 feet away from the guy. It's like,
Exactly.
damn, you snuck up on me pretty quick.
So yeah, I had to get used to that. I had to get used to walking in the middle of them.
Yeah.
But I found myself doing stuff that the season 8s would do. And they said sometimes if you give a little bit of this much respect, because this is all that they have, you get much more back.
True.
And so as I'm walking up there, I go get the inmate. Of course, the inmate's playing like he's in a deep sleep. All the lights on, dude. It's daytime. So I called his name. He didn't respond. So I said, okay. I racked the bed with the boot, steel toes. He turned around as if he was about to do something. And I said, hey, in a real nice tone. I didn't get aggressive with him. After I kicked it and he rolled over, I said, we need to see you at the front desk.
Mhm.
Make sure you bring your ID. I'll never forget that. And then I walked off. I didn't like wait for him to get up and do all this other stuff. I used to see before I left and in training, see the new staff do that. Okay. And I didn't do it. When I first got there, I didn't do it. I told him to get up, bring your ID, and I went back down. And that was it. He came down and we did what we conducted business. And that was it. But like you said, it's up close and personal at MCC.
Oh yeah.
The pass searches in and out. That was crazy.
Right at the doorway there.
At the door, in and out, in and out. And uh oh man, the experience, the first time a fight broke out on my unit. Nobody came. Well, yes, they came up to help, and they handcuffed the inmates and everything. And I got IDs and stuff, but I had to do everything myself. Nobody came up to help me pack property, to secure the property, to move it from the cell to an area where I could pack it. None of that. I had to do that within the 8 hours or whatever time it was, the remaining time. And I said to myself, if I'm ever in a position to help another officer out, if there's a fight, because I don't know what that officer went through with that fight. okay, and that whole scenario thing. I'm going to try to help him. And what I mean by that is, hey, you go take care of the property. I'll run your unit for a little bit.
It's funny.
You know,
I think, and that's unfortunate. That seems like it's been lost too, where we help each other out. It's unfortunate. Like I seen that when I was leaving, and then the few people I talk to now that are still in the game, and I'm just like, man, I don't know if I could handle it anymore, because it's just like
yeah,
nobody really, people aren't taking care of each other.
no.
As difficult as that job is, they just aren't there for each other anymore, which is really unfortunate.
To me, and this is not like while the inmates are fighting and you have responding staff to come up and you get the inmate and you do all that stuff. It's what happens afterwards
Right.
for that officer that just went through it. When I came up and helped that officer out, he was doing the packing. I was shaking down. I was making rounds. I was doing all this other stuff, and he was able to finish, the packing and all that stuff and getting that squared away. He said thank you, and the look that he had on his face, he really meant it.
Right. He really appreciated you, being there. Yep.
And that's all the things that I needed, because I went through it. I had to, while I'm packing property, I had to stop packing property to answer the door, answer the phone, then back to the property, then do it all over again, then moving inmates, making rounds, and doing all this.
Then you got to make sure
And
property's in a good spot where you're not going to get carjacked for all the property.
exactly. So at the time, the computer room now where the inmates can do their emails, it was where the inmates would serve chow from.
Right.
Okay, which they still do, I think.
Yeah,
But
they do.
I kicked everybody out of there. I brought all the property down, secured the keys and the door.
Mm-hmm.
Went and conducted business, made rounds, did whatever I had to do. Go back, started separating everything. Once I did that, is pen and paper. Everything, inmate's name, number, date and time, this, that, and the other. And I still don't see how I did it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also remember this one thing, though. I said, you know what? If a fight is going to happen, it's going to happen regardless of how much I do.
Yep.
Okay. But I said that within my 8 hours or my 16 hours, I'm going to be the most nosiest SOB on that unit. Where if they even thinking about fighting, or if I feel like they want to argue or they play fighting or whatever, I'm right in the middle of it. Hey, come here, let me talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that the paperwork was the hassle. It was everything. It was just that, the whole thing in general. If I can avoid something from happening, I'm going to do so. And what I used to do is, at that time we had logbooks, so we didn't have the computers.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that I talked to an inmate about a situation, a fight, a discussion, especially a fight, but any kind of arguments or whatever, I write them down in red ink. When you pass on something, sometimes you forget. If it's in red ink, it's right there.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah. Then when I went to the lock shop, that was a whole different ballgame.
Now, what year did you roll over to locksmith?
Ooh, I want to say probably in 2008.
Okay.
2008, maybe like halfway through my time. But I took it upon myself once I was able to be what do you call that? The alternate
Okay.
alternate lock shop. I came in every Wednesday for 4 hours on my own time. Nobody said anything that I couldn't, and I tried to pick up what I could until they said, "Hey, you're a liability. You're not in the you're going on the units and you're not supposed to be here and all this here other stuff." And that I said, "Well, if I come in on my own time, well, no, you can't do that.
Can't do that. Yeah.
How do you expect me to learn
gonna learn this crap. It's not
You
like
know, so
they didn't have the people to get you relieved so you could work up there. Right.
exactly. So, but see, I saw a few other people do something like that, and I don't even remember even asking the captain, to be honest with you, if I can come in on 4 hours on my off time. I don't remember asking, but I did it.
It's some initiative, that's all. Right.
And you know, it was, why are you doing that? And why you going in on your off time? And why you in here? And this, that, and the other. I give them, hey, I need to learn. I need to learn what I'm doing. But like you said, it's a sense of pride in what you do and wanting to learn it. And once I got in the lock shop, that became a whole different ball game. Now I'm doing it. But like you said, when you got together with all the other captains and you talking things through in your stories, and sometimes you get ideas that might work at your institution, some ideas might not work.
Yeah.
I started networking with the other lock shops. And these guys were like a brotherhood of lock shops.
Mhm.
I couldn't believe it. Shared information, how to do this, do your paperwork like this, and that's what got me to the point where, my confidence level came up a little bit until that first program review. Well, I was nervous as shit. Yeah, I didn't want to let the captain down. I didn't want no dings in the lock shop. So again, I came in on my off time, came in on weekends, came in at night to go over paperwork.
Got to. Especially like, because that when who was your so when you were the assistant lock shop, who's the lock security specialist? Who's that? Who'd you work under?
Uh, I worked under Eric Wilderby. I
I
had to
didn't.
wait. So he was the assistant, and I had to wait until he got the lock shop job before they opened up the assistant job.
Right, right.
So the captain said, Gibbs, I need you to go up there and work with him.
Mhm.
Okay. And I wasn't being pulled. I was taken off the roster to work in the lock shop.
Right.
Now, granted, I didn't get the title yet,
Yep.
but going through that stuff and learning what he learned and, figuring stuff out for myself, it just started to roll. And I don't know how I did it. I don't know, you know, I just don't know. I just, from day to day, I just went through emotions and then I just started picking up on stuff.
Mhm.
And the networking from the other lock shops, going to different classes,
Right.
talking to those guys about stuff. We After Wilderby left, I had two guys to come up there before you got there. A guy named Crow, the other guy's name, I forget his name. He was a lieutenant, but he was helping out in the lock shop too because we were kind of off in some areas, and he came from a lock shop
Okay.
to lieutenant. So from just those two individuals, uh, I learned I had to get more organization skills. Okay, and Crow was all about paperwork, and when he showed me some things, he said, "Get this policy and read it. Get your paperwork, get your working papers, and go over it. So can't nobody tell you what's in those working papers because you memorized
Yeah. Yeah.
it." And wow, did that open up a lot of eyes.
Mhm.
I absorbed myself into those working papers so much that I could sit there with confidence as a as a lieutenant came in one day to look over my paperwork and said, I have to ding you on something. And right then and there, I kind of stepped outside myself. I think we all have at one point in time in the Bureau. And I said, if you find something, you let me know because you won't find anything.
Mhm.
And I said that with a serious face because I'm not going to spend every other weekend sure that the lieutenant sign it and the officer sign those equipment form sheets and all this. No.
That's why I could never figure that out. All the program views I've gone on, the so-called security inspections, things like that I've gone around the country. I'm just like, hey man,
Yes.
it's open book test. It's right in front of you. What are you doing? Like it's right there. What like
Yeah.
step one, make sure this is done. That's all. Hey, I'll be back. I'll be back. I'm going to get a coffee. I'll be back. So figure it out. I come back and it's
Now,
still. I'm like, come on, dude. I can only give you so many breaks.
when you mention that, so I learned that a long time ago too. Uh, I went for a, what do you call that? A staff assist.
Yep.
Okay, so we're helping the other institution with their paperwork basically. And I shit you not, I had a binder. It had to be about 4 inches thick,
Mhm.
and I was just flipping through it, just flipping the pages, and I stopped on a page and I found a signature missing here. This not done. That not done. I said, what helps me is before you even file it and it's not done, put that in a different folder. When you go to gather your paperwork up and it's not filled out properly, put that in a different folder.
I still can't I could never put a finger on it why people were like that in that didn't matter what position, what department, you'd always find stuff like that. It's like, man, it's really not that hard. You know, it's hard to it's harder to not do your job than to
Yes.
man, you like making this really hard for people to just get through the basics of the day. And
Right. Right.
all the time. Not saying I was some expert, but Jesus, man, I seen some train
I
wrecks.
I learned so much from you, as well as uh, the warden. Now he was captain. Uh, I
Mhm.
just took bits and pieces of the captains of the different lock shops and start putting my own thing together and going, hey, it works here for Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to let this, work here in Chicago like this. I can't do this, that, and the other, but I'm gonna let this part work. And from the captains, from yourself, I'll never forget when you told me, God, what was it? Something wasn't on the roster for something, and I guess it was the officers who was transporting the inmates on a for medical, and they were on the roster for that. But then if there wasn't any medical trips, they go to a unit. And I swore up and down I did it, and you showed it to me, and I was like, "Fuck, you're
You
right."
got me.
And I didn't feel bad about it, but in my mind, I covered the bases, man. I covered everything. And then when you showed it to me, you weren't like, "Hey Gibbs, you fucked up." You just told me, and I'm like, "Oh shit, yeah, all right." And then and on my left side of my brain was like, "But you were so sure." No, dude, he's right. It's right there in front of you. So learning from that and past stuff from other people, I pass that on to the next guy.
Uh-huh.
So hey, make sure this, make sure that. And I might sound like I'm nitpicking, but everything that I think about now, everything that I tried to explain was the oops I made, or the almost oops, or be careful about this. And so they won't trip up. But just like kids, you have to let them,
So,
go their
yeah,
own way.
right. Yeah.
That was, man. And I still talk to him today from time to time, and uh, we'll be on the phone for almost 40 minutes
Mm, wow.
talking shop, But anyway,
What do you
whew,
think what do you think what was your best experience and worst experience in the BOP? Start with the good.
let's see. The good, I guess a couple of those. I guess coming to work and you know thinking that um, every now and then to show your staff you're doing a good job or whatever. I didn't get that, but I knew that it was, hey, I need to come to work. I need to do my job and then go home and not think about that part. But then when it did happen, instead of me being that type of officer that was always griping about, I did this, I did that, how come I didn't get a pat on the back? When it did happen, everything just kind of just settled out like, okay, they see me, they don't have to acknowledge me all the time or whatever. I'm cool with that. As long as I know I did what I was supposed to do and went home and didn't leave the other officer in a bad situation. Uh, good stuff. Having a I guess a so-called good day. You know, didn't have to do a forced sale move. I don't. I don't. I guess every day was a good day until something did happen, and then when it did happen, uh, the escape. I'll never forget that.
Yeah,
They pulled me.
let's talk about that. What happened? What happened with that? Where were you? What were you doing?
I was uh
You're in the lock shop.
lock shop assistant. I was in the lock shop. I got pulled to work an open door.
Hmm.
I wasn't feeling it that day. Didn't feel like have to deal with the open dorm. I really didn't. So I went up there being a hard ass. Okay. And that was my thinking. I get up there and I'm looking around and the inmates are kind of settled in already and everything is running smooth. So I'm like, okay, I don't need to be a butt up there. Making my rounds and stuff. And I never forget it was a counselor Johnson come up on the unit. And I don't know what was said over the radio. I don't remember that part, but I remember him coming up on a unit and say, Gibbs, give me your keys. You need to go to the lock shop. I said, what's going on? And he whispered there was an escape. So of course, I'm hitting every section. I'm double checking the bars, I'm kicking shit and all of that. He said, no. He said, it wasn't on your floor. Go to the lock shop. So now, on the way, and granted, I didn't see anything outside. I didn't know what was going on. All I know, it happened. I'm getting ready for staff to come up to grab these escape kits.
Okay.
To go out. I went over, let's see, how can I put this? So the way the armory lock shop was set up then, the long hallway and things, I had everything set up. All he had to do was come up and just sign stuff and go. And nobody came up. Nobody came up. So I'm sitting there like an old granny twiddling their thumbs, waiting and waiting. And I'm like, what, what's going on? Because my adrenaline is pumping. I'm ready for staff to come up to grab these kits, and half the staff is not from Chicago, so they have to follow a map. So I know in my head, hey, I'm going to have to explain this map to them. Okay. Right. I'm going to have to, make it simple so they can understand where they're going and what they're looking for. Okay. I went to control and got the pictures that control printed out, made copies, put it with each kit so they can have some kind of photo. I didn't know what was going on though.
You had all the time. You had all the time. You had all that time to get that stuff done.
Yes, because I kind of knew like they had to have this. They got to get the kits. They got to sign the paperwork. They got to do this and do that. So I pretty much did it as if I was coming up to grab the kits and what to expect. Right. Nobody came up. People grabbed keys from control or the powerhouse, wherever they grabbed them from, and they went out. And I'm like, okay. And then of course all over the news and all over,
So where did staff deploy out to the escape post, or what'd they do? Because I mean, they didn't even have them, nothing.
No cuffs. Well, I don't know if they had handcuffs with them, but they definitely didn't have the kits with the weapons. They did not have that.
The hell? Who the hell? God knows who, but Who the hell made that decision? That was really intelligent. Hmm.
I don't know, but like I said, I didn't want staff to be waiting on me to give them stuff.
Yeah, right.
Okay. I'm thinking, go up there, you know what to do. Grab the kits, put them out, do this and do this. So that way when they come up, as they come up, they can feel comfortable getting the stuff. And I can tell them because I'm from the city.
Mhm.
And nobody came up. Um, Jesus. I just sat there and I was like, okay, I didn't get a call from a lieutenant or a captain to do anything. And I'm like, okay, how long am I sitting here now? Waiting. So I called the lieutenant's office. They're busy. I'll call you back. Okay. And I sat there and sat there.
Damn.
And it pissed me off because
You know what to do. I mean, you're the security officer. You know what to do. It's just, nobody's showing up. You're like, what the hell is going on here?
so I'm like, how do I voice my opinion without really going off? Without really going off. And then I have to be careful who I'm talking to
True. Yep.
because, but at the time, the captain was busy with his stuff and the lieutenants were busy with their stuff.
Now, without mentioning names, is the captain that who's the warden now, right?
I want to say yes, but I don't remember that part at all. Uh, I don't remember, to be honest with you. I want to say yes, though, but like I said, because I'm trying to remember the captain before him, it could have been that one. But again, I'm not gonna implement that. But it was an experience that I hated. Um, then after, I don't know if it was after that or before that, we had a incident that happened on the ninth floor.
But did they? So about the escape though, did they like after it happened, after action, did anyone like pull you up, say, "Hey, we're going to talk to the security officer"? Did anyone ever
No,
really?
no,
Crap!
nope.
Wow. Jesus.
They didn't ask me a thing,
Hmm.
and I was kind of waiting to give my opinion,
Right. Right. Yeah.
without stepping on anybody's toes. But I know in a panic, and I'm like, okay, so now I'm reverting back to when I was on the ship and being trained and going over different drills. And going over the drills helped me get comfortable with what I needed to do. And just like we're talking now, we'll be talking on the ship, and one of the uh, other guys will say, "Okay, what would you do if this happened?"
If a
And you
fire.
pretty much have right. If a fire breaks out, if a pump blows up, if this happens, and we had a protocol for things that happen, and you would either rattle it off or you would give your own different opinions, and then you open up the book that had the steps in it.
Yep.
So there were steps to that escape on what to do, and they weren't followed.
Hmm.
Okay, but the after action, I do remember that they came in. Um, they looked at my escape kits,
Just the
and
plastic suitcases.
yes. So they went through. They randomly picked, of course, one of the suitcases, and they sat down with their little check sheet. And I sat there. They didn't ask me anything. I don't think we even just talked about general anything. He said, "Okay, you're good,"
Looks
and they
good.
went on about their business. But then it was eating me up inside, like, so, dude, I have this equipment here for use
Mhm.
for this stuff, and I'm ready to explain. Hey, you got to go to the Greyhound bus station. Hey, you got to go to Midway Airport. Hey, you got to go to O'Hare Airport, which is a nice little ride. You know, to people who don't know where they're going and what expressway to go. And I was told working in the bureau, if you don't know your personnel and what they're capable of, and you throw them in and just to do anything, sometimes it's not a good idea. You know, Um, I had a captain had me and two other staff members. Okay, I'm not going to mention anybody's name, to go out to take this inmate to the hospital. The captain said, "I trust you because you have a more level head. Plus, you know Chicago."
Mhm.
And now I said, "Okay, no problem." And as I'm going there to this hospital, I'm thinking of the exits, the street over here, the ramp here, the stairs that comes up through the blind side. I'm thinking about all the stuff that could happen. I think that that doesn't happen anymore.
Mm-mm. No.
You know, you send people out to do stuff and they're not familiar with it. They're not comfortable. I.e., a 5-man team and say for sale. You got the DCT team members who's showing guys what to do and this, that, and the other. And then you have those who have never been on a for sale.
Mhm.
And I didn't know, you know, uh, how can I say, not knowing to be a leader, but you are um, a staff member. And this was the year that I was about to leave. Said, Gibbs, I've never been on a forced sale before, and I'm kind of nervous. This is a grown man. And I said, hey, I'm nervous too. I don't know what this individual is capable of. And I just started talking to him, and he just kind of just relaxed and helped him put on his gear. And he said, I'm with you. I said, I'm not going nowhere. And even afterwards, nothing happened. The inmate cuffed up. He said, Gibbs, I really appreciated that.
Of course, he cuffed her. Mhm.
So I said, hey, anytime you want to, anytime you want to force sale and I'm called to be the gas man or one of the members, hey, because
Um,
I was doing it. Go ahead.
good. Oh, good. You're doing what? Good.
I, I explained to him, I said, I was going on forced sale moves before using less lethal,
Yeah,
you
you
know.
actually go inside the cell. Yeah. Right.
Right, you pop the door, you got a shield, and you go in there and you strong and arming this guy.
Yeah, the shield. Yeah.
And yeah, I was nervous. My first time, you damn right I was nervous. But somebody told me the same thing I told him. I'm with you. I'm
Yep.
not going to leave. I'm leaving when you leaving. We're coming out together. That
And
gave me more confidence.
it's funny how you said, everyone's a leader, and I think that's been lost. I think that was lost a long time ago.
Yep.
Where and I would tell officers that, hey, you could have this could be a really easy day for you or a real hard day. Just don't do your job. It's gonna be one hell of a hard day, probably. And step up and be that leader, even if you're GS5, GS6. Guess what? You're running that house. You're in charge of the Sally Port, or you're running the elevators that day. Hey, you're
Yeah.
in charge of it. Take leadership of it. Take ownership of it. Like I tried to tell you guys all the time, take ownership of everything, and things will be a lot better. And I mean, you saw it when you were leaving.
Yeah.
It was people just like, no, that's not my job. That's not my job. No, that is your job because we're all in this crap together. I want to go home when you go home. All right. I'm not going to leave
Exactly.
until you know. So
Exactly.
many nights I would stay just a use of force going on on evening watch, 4 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock. Hey, are you guys done up there? Because I would never get involved in the use of force if there's a lieutenant up there, and
Right.
let them run their show. But man,
Yeah.
I'd be waiting and they'd be like, Captain, why are you still here? I just want to make sure you're all right. That's all. It's just
Yeah.
like they've lost that. They really have.
Yeah.
Really have.
Yeah. They have. I look. I don't think about it that much anymore. But talking to you, it brings up a lot of little small things. I had a lieutenant to ask me what to do, and I was like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, wow, you're an 11.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm a 10. But is it because I've been around here a minute? So I guess giving that lieutenant the confidence and going, hey, regardless, if an inmate is facing the wall and you don't know if he's cuffed up or not, which you should know, your staff should know if he's cuffed up or not, or if he's. I'll put it this way: they don't know if he's cuffed up or he slipped the cuffs. Okay, so he's facing the wall, you can't see him, but his back. Send a team in, but I'm not talking about send a team in to rough him up, but let him know. You give him, under the camera, hey, you need to turn around. You need to turn around so we can see that you're cuffed up and blah blah blah. Don't spray him, because how are you going to justify it?
Because if he's cuffed up, man, could put yourself
Exactly. So that lieutenant got the team, talked to the inmate a few times, and they ended up going in there, and he was still cuffed up. And luckily, spray wasn't used. Okay. Being in certain situations where I've been to the lieutenant's office, and the lieutenants are talking about this, that, and the other, and I happen to walk in to grab some paperwork, and it's, hey, Gibbs, can you? Yeah. All right. I got it. So I take the paperwork and I make sure I put it back in my mailbox, and I go handle that situation for him. Take care of the Sally Port or whatever for, this person needs to go up and talk to SIS. Well, I know it's not 15, 20 minutes. It's going to be about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. So I go down there and just take care of it, because I know that the lieutenant don't have a lot of people that they can rely on to take over a unit while this person leaves, or go do this or go do that. And I found myself doing it, but all I asked for is just, hey, let Gibbs do his lock shop stuff for a while. Okay, don't call on him if you don't have to. And a lot of times I'm sitting up there trying to figure out how I'm going to buy parts for Unit 13, and we won't even talk about that. But anyway,
what do you think? What's your worst experience, you think?
The worst experience. See, the escape was one. The homicide on the 9th floor was one. Towards the end of the shift, they had something going on the 9th floor, and an inmate got beat up pretty bad.
And the 9th floor was, what was that?
Education.
Education. That's right. Yep.
And they were having some type of I don't know if it was a AA meeting or something. I don't know, some kind of meeting, and the inmates gathered there back in the back. And I remember a lieutenant called and said, Gibbs, I have nobody else. I have to send you out with the lock shop. I was still the assistant. And he said, because we have a homicide and I don't have nobody else, and I trust you. That was enough. Mm-hmm. When he said, I trust you, when he said, I don't have nobody else, and not saying, okay, I feel honored, but when I can't rely on nobody else, hey, Gibbs, I got you. It made me feel good.
Yeah.
So, but in doing so, what I went through with that inmate, and the inmate lying there in that room, he was unconscious.
Was this the inmate? This is the inmate that was assaulted, and eventually,
yes.
He died of the assault, right?
Yes, he eventually died. So, what was it? The FBI or U.S. Marshals? One of the two. They come up, and what made it so bad is we went to the new county hospital. So where the inmate was sitting, it was like 8 or 9 different doors, okay, exits and stuff, and I'm sitting there like, okay, so how do I position myself in case if something happens? And I'm not thinking that, okay, this guy's unconscious. He just got jumped on the 9th floor. but I'm thinking about the security thing of it. So they came in, they ID'd themselves. I spoke to him. Then later on, he moved up to a room, and then the lieutenant that evening, because we stayed on him that whole night until 10 o'clock. The lieutenant, I spoke to the lieutenant on the phone to give him an update, and he told me, "Hey, the wife is coming up. You have to ID her and all this." I'm saying to myself, "You got permission for all this?"
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't trying to second guess the lieutenant, you know, but I'm like, this is odd.
I mean, you've never been really weren't experienced as far as taking inmates out. So, yeah.
Right. So, you know, we did that, and the inmate is sitting up there, and he's on life support. And the wife comes up, and she shows me the ID, and she's crying and boo-hooing, and she keeps saying, "They did this to you," and kept looking at me. And I felt bad for her, but I didn't do this. I said, if I have a way of, if I see inmates arguing, I kind of jump into it. Okay, I jump in the middle of it to try to, distract them from doing it. I've done it before. I've seen two inmates on the floor arguing about something, and I swear I would yell at them, cussing at them. The fuck is going on? Hey, what's that? Da, da, da? I just blurted out, and they stop, and all the attention is me now. That's what I want. Stop you from doing whatever you're doing, just long enough for me to do that might de-escalate the situation. But I wasn't there, and that happened. And it was one other. I can't remember, but those two kind of stand out. One situation where a staff member went out, didn't have their weapon. They took an inmate out, and well, okay, I issued the weapon. I left to go back to what I was doing. I get called later by the Sally Port that what appears to be a BOP weapon locked up in the safe, in the marshal's gun locker. And so I'm thinking, okay, a marshal just came in with a weapon that looks just like it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'll come back there. And he said, "Hey, ain't no marshals come in. I called the lieutenant. No, I don't want to rat nobody out, but it's right there. I can't change what's right there." And he come in, and we standing there. He opened it up and pulled it out, and sure enough,
That's
the paperwork, the serial number, yeah. I said, "Wow." And he said, "Wow."
I remember hearing about that incident, and I think I know exactly who it is too.
So I was like, "Wow." So yeah, I did my memo, whatever, and I left it alone. I didn't even want to hear nothing else. But BOP gossip, MCC Chicago gossip. "Hey, you know what happened? This is what happened." I didn't ask you, dude. I don't want to know.
Exactly.
I don't want to know, because no. But anyway, that's about it. I think as I got kind of used to things, how things were going on, I just flowed with it. For sale, boom. "Hey, Gibbs, I need to be the gas man. What do you need? You want me to bring something from the shop? You want me to bring something?" I started to know what the lieutenants wanted, what they didn't want. Okay. And how the guys used to tell me back in the day, when you're riding in a vintage car on a Sunday, you just sit back and hit cruise, and you just hold the steering wheel. You just roll the road. You just ride the road.
I mean, you remember how it was before we put the gun locker up in the lieutenant's house. I mean, that was like,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember calling for munitions like the first time I was getting the warden's permission to use munitions on an inmate, everyone's like, what are we doing? Yeah, bring this
So
to me. You know, this is
so
what we
scared and so nervous.
X, Y, and Z. Please bring it to me. And I was like, so where are we getting this from? And why is it taking so long? Well, we have to go up to the armory. Then we have to get this key. We have to get this. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's gonna change real quick here.
And everything was on the second floor in the cart. So you had to go cross this way, go over, call for the door, get the stuff, wheel it back over there, and do all this stuff. And when you change things, I was like, okay, this will work, you know. And another thing I learned from you is you never know until you ask, because this is what's needed. I need to get this stuff now so I can go handle the situation now.
Yeah.
Not wait for you to come from here to over there to come back to go up. You're wasting time.
For a couple nights waiting, jeez, felt like
Yeah.
half hour, probably less time, but it felt like it was like forever.
Oh,
Yes.
you know what? I do remember another time. I'm sorry, cut you off. So the SWAT team from Oxford came up for training, right? They brought gear. And so I moved the little tiny lock shop stuff around and got them a spot in that little tiny room to put all the gear in that little room. And because I took the time on weekends to go through the building, the Alpha Bravo side, to go up this way, to go that way, finding out if these keys worked on the locks, maintaining them. I knew how to get around the building, a little bit better than just grabbing the elevators all the time. And I think that lieutenant came up for pro staff assist or something. And after he said, I got to find something to ding you on, we started talking about SWOT stuff, and his eyes kind of lit up. And I told him about traveling through the building. I said, get you guys ready to carry some gear up some stairs. I said, about 50 pounds, maybe, whatever they carry, they need to go upstairs. So when they came, I thought I had a perfect way of doing certain things, but a lieutenant, GS9 lieutenant, said he had a better way. And that Marshall's elevator broke down on him.
They got stuck in there for a while, didn't it?
Yeah, because he wanted to take them up with all their gear in that elevator,
Well,
which was over.
Let's take the easy way, you know.
Yeah, and then they had all their gear. And so in talking to the lieutenant, I said, send up 3 or 4 of you guys to the armory this way. Okay. Load up, come out, post up, have 3 more guys to come up, wait until those guys get geared up. Then they go back into the Sally port and have the other guys take over their ports, post, and just keep rotating them until everybody's geared up. Somebody's always on post. Then you go up through the elevator. No, you take the stairs. Go up to R&D. Go up this way. Take the stairs, Alpha Bravo side. Go up this way. They're going to have to walk those stairs because the elevator is just not going to do it.
Yep.
So, but when the elevator broke down, that was broke down for a while, So, and then the staff got left in the elevator for a while, so that was a good thing, So.
All right. So,
But,
what do you think? So, last question. So, what do you think? Like the new staff coming on board? Because I know with us, I mean, what are you at a year now? You're just over a year, right?
Yeah, just over a year.
So, what do you think? I mean, what you saw when you were leaving, what do you think some of the like new staff, what do you think they should be doing, looking out for? Any words of wisdom that they could get from you?
Okay, so I guess learn how to talk to these inmates. Learn how to talk to staff. You must communicate in a way that they understand. And what I mean by that is you got different levels of inmates. You have some educated guys who are locked up, and you have some who are not educated. So learn how to talk to all of them so they can all understand. Be aware. Also, listen to other older staff that's been around, not a person. I mean, I'm not gonna say not a person who's been there for a year or two, because they could have, a lot of experience as well. But learn how to listen to other staff. Uh, I try to help out the new staff, and a lot of them say, "I know what I'm doing. I got this." Hey, okay. And as I'm traveling throughout the building, I would ask the new officers, "Is everything okay? How you doing? If you need some, some help, I'm offering everything. I'm an open book. Even though I might not have gotten that when I first came, be able to take that criticism,
Right.
and roll with it and talk, and don't just be a desk jockey and sit at the desk all day. Be nosy, walk around. You might be traveling through different units throughout your quarter. Walk around, learn the inmates, you know, uh, and talk to staff who has been there, so you can learn something. Make your day go by easier, or else you're going to be all day trying to figure out. Even though we all stumble, and I did do that, and I bumped my head a couple of times, but I learned from that and go, oh, you know what? I'm not doing that no more. I remember this one time that I'm new, and a counselor came out of their office and yelled out at the inmates, cussed them out, and they all did what they were supposed to do. And then that counselor looked at me and she said, uh, you can't do that just yet. You haven't been here long enough. And I'm like, what do you mean I haven't been here long enough? It kind of stumped me for a while. And now I know what she means. Hey, you need to learn your inmates and know how to talk to them so they can understand you. And once the inmates know that you're about business, you're not there to constantly, nitpick at an inmate and this, that, and the other. If they're doing what they're supposed to do, leave them alone. You can talk to them, but always, I got to give you a shot. I got to give you a shot. And there's other ways around shots. I learned that, and boy, that works even better.
Yeah, you can do
That
some work.
works even. Yeah, I mean, the officer's supposed to do his job, but there's ways of doing it, and you're still in the right.
Yep.
Regardless, I just wish staff would work together, talk to each other, uh, be willing to learn. You know, uh, a lot of these new staff will, I don't know if calling off or anything like that has anything to do with it, but you got to come to work to really learn. And these special privileges, well, I'm expecting to do this and this that, and the other. It's great to shoot for those goals. There's nothing wrong with that. But what about paying your dues first? You know, I worked units so much, I never saw the basement, the gym, the rooftop, the ninth floor, the eighth. I never saw those floors. I was on a floor with an inmate, open dorms. 13 was my favorite floor. Why? I don't know why. I don't know if it was a lot of medicated inmates and I just kind of felt comfortable with medicated inmates. But I learned how to work it,
Mm-hmm.
and once I learned how to work it, the floors didn't differ that much. 25 used to be the glory floor where everybody went to work and they felt very privileged. All that changed.
Right. Oh, that was the worst floor, actually.
When the pandemic happened, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
I didn't lose it, but yeah, I was stressed.
Mhm.
I was stressed. The riot, I was stressed. Only saw stuff like that on TV. But when I actually saw it, I went numb to it. Like you said, you go numb to it. Okay, so are we through with this now? What's next? Oh, okay. So it's time to rebuild. Okay. It's time to restock the stores. Okay. I gotta wear a mask now forever. Okay. I gotta go up on the unit and I gotta wear PPE gear. And I'm sweating. I got a uniform on and all this here other stuff. And okay.
Yep.
No, I don't feel like it. That was worse too, but I went along with it so well. I just didn't think about it anymore. I just rolled with it. So
Times, man. It was definitely some tough times.
oh,
Us, we
definitely.
inside like we were.
I've never, you know, uh, I saw people getting along, but they were very cautious with, more of the cleaning of the hands and stuff, and more cautious of that. And I'm like, how come we wasn't cautious like this in the very beginning? When I first started the bureau, I mean, it was pat searching inmates. I didn't really think, I cleaned my hands, but did I think about it as much as the pandemic? No.
Of course not. Mm-mm.
And that changed everything. Even now, people still walk around with masks, especially going to the hospital. You definitely have to mask up no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, just going to regular doctor. I went to the doctor the other day. I had to wear a mask, so I didn't
Yeah.
like it. But what you got to do,
No,
unfortunately.
no, I didn't like it at all. But then the pandemic is still out there. It's not as rough now, but wow, what did we have to go through?
Mhm.
Vaccinations, boosters. In the institution, had to deal with quarantine floors. And oh,
Yeah, it was tough, brother. It was tough, man. Well, hey, man, it was awesome talking to you. It was good seeing you.
same here.
Anytime you want to talk again, let me know. We should get together, a few of us. All
Oh,
right.
most definitely.
So
Thank you very much.
stay in touch with you. All right.
All right, take care.
Appreciate it, man. Enjoy your retirement. Talk to you soon.
You too. Bye
All right,
bye.
brother.